Welcome to another episode of the Alley Report, part of the Service Department. Today we're talking with author Red Lagoe, author of Dismal Dreams, In Excess of Dark, Lucid Screams, and so much more. Thanks for coming on here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I just saw you were announced as a guest of honor at AuthorCon.
Isn't that
That's
crazy? I'm
awesome. That's
so
amazing.
excited. Yeah, that one threw me for a loop when I got invited. I had a I panicked inside and I tried not to say, "Are you sure you want to invite me?
It's like,
Sure you got the wrong guy?" I'm really
yeah,
excited.
that's awesome. Yeah, I do the same. Whenever I get good news, I'm like, wait, did I read it right? Um, and also, your novella In Excess of Dark just recently has got a comeback with like some amazing illustrations. Those were fantastic.
Yeah, it's just got a resurrection. The press that it originally was published through shut down, and I was going to re-release it myself because I do a lot of self-publishing anyway. And so I was going to re-release it through Death Knell Press, which is my own um, imprint, with all new illustrations and everything. But then brand new press Sobolo Books expressed interest, and I took them up on the offer because I didn't really have the time in my schedule to do a re-release, to do everything, the formatting and the promotional stuff, like everything involved with that. And so when they offered, I I was like, thank God. And I
I
let
mean,
them take it on. But I did all the illustrations myself.
yeah, those are amazing. Especially seeing like, I mean, when you first started like a couple years ago, really showcasing your art. I mean, it was good. It was really good. But I feel like it's just got exponentially better the past few years, just
Thank you. I agree.
in the best way.
Um, I used to be really into art in high school and then a little bit in college, but this is going back over 20 years. But I didn't do anything with it after college. I went to work and I had a job that had nothing to do with art. And so I didn't practice. I didn't use my art at all for like 2 decades. And so when I started drawing it again a few years ago, I was still my high school level basically because I wasn't doing anything. But yeah, practice definitely improved it.
Yeah, it looks amazing. And yeah, that the new press has been really killing it on the getting the word out there about it and everything. So that's been awesome to see.
Yeah, yeah, it's
So many
been really
people.
good working with it's Elsie Marino and LP Hernandez run Sobolo Books. So they've been doing a really good job getting the word out.
Um, also, I was big. I love Lucid Screams and Dismal Dreams, especially Dismal Dreams. But I feel like Impulses of a Necrotic Heart is like a new level of darkness, and I just admire that.
Oh, I agree. Something happened. So a lot of those stories were actually written, um, in the years, like the year or so leading up to and during COVID. So I just really started leaning into the emotional side of our darker side, I
Yeah,
guess. That makes sense. And once I learned to lean into those, into the heart of the story, into the real human emotion behind the stories, I think it got pretty twisted and demented and dark.
yeah, and I mean, yeah, because I mean, I feel like there's always horror in your stories, but I feel like there's a new level of it just resonated so much more because like like you said, you got into the heart of the characters, the people in your stories, and then just devastated everyone with them.
I'm glad I was able to devastate.
Yeah,
It's kind of what I was going for.
yeah. That's every now and then I've done that with stories where it's like I worry like I'm losing my edge, and I'll try to write something. It's like to prove myself, I still got it. I can still do that. So I have a few stories where I've done
And
that.
yeah, and usually that's what it takes. It's not so much, I mean, but gore and extremism, I mean, it has its place and it has its market. Um, and you can do both. You can lean into the emotional side of things and the gore. But you can also just like, I like the stories that really get to the human side of things, like when we really dig into the heart of the problem and the core human issue. that's at hand. And when you can really get in there and tug those heartstrings, sometimes the horror can really pay off.
Yeah, I agree because there's so many like indie horrors I've read that plot wise, they're very cinematic. They have some really cool scenes, but the people are just interchangeable and they're kind of cardboard. And I always hate it because it's like you can raise your reading. It's like this could be so much more. Like if you let these people be people,
Yeah,
this could be so much more.
I agree. I agree. And I mean, there's a place for that kind of horror. Sometimes you just want the kind of mindless,
True,
heartless,
true, yeah.
the good slasher flick or whatever. But but yeah, I think you can really raise the stakes for the reader and really get the reader hooked if you dive into the emotion of it.
Um, one thing you're also known for is being huge astronomy buff and always letting us know what comets are going to be around and things like that, letting us in the horror community know what's going on in the sky. Um, do you think that's given a viewpoint on your horror, like that's influenced it in some way, having that interest?
It it definitely works its way into a lot of my stories, and I have a hard time not letting it. I'm writing a book right now, and I keep trying to like stick it in there, stick in some astronomy, like the main character has his interest. And I want to go a different direction because the last book I wrote, my main character is really into astronomy. And a few stories I wrote before that are really into astronomy. And so I'm trying to pull away from it, but I can't. I'm just gonna lean into it. It's part of who I am. I mean, I step outside my front door and I immediately look up. I can't not look up. So the stars are probably always gonna make it into my story.
Yeah, I think it's good. I think it's when an author has like a unique specific interest or something like that. I feel like it always gets a new viewpoint on things in a story. I always like that. I always like when you can read something you can tell like, oh, they're into this. Like, this is big for them.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear I'm not overusing it.
Oh
I
no.
I submitted to an anthology one time. I don't want to name the anthology. But I submitted to the anthology and I ran into the editor of that anthology at a con, and and he said he was still reading the stories, and he said he was considering mine, and he said he knew it was mine. He was blind reading, so he didn't even know whose story he was reading, but he knew he was reading my story because of the heavy astronomy aspect that I put into it. And he said, I knew it had to be yours.
I love that instant giveaway.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, you mentioned your press Death Knell earlier. I mean, that was your first anthology with your own press was Nightmare Skies.
Mhm. Yeah, that was something I knew I had to do. I wanted to do an anthology. Well, I had been considering doing a collection of all my astronomy related stories and doing just kind of a bunch of those and putting them all together in one themed collection of my own stories. Um, but I was also really interested in doing an anthology, and so I figured this is my chance. I'll just have other people write the stories, which I'm glad I did because I got such a variety of stories in Nightmare Sky from different people, and people took it in different directions, and I'm really happy with the way that turned out.
And having done an anthology, is it something because usually when people are like they start their own press, they do an anthology, they're either like hooked, they want to do it again, or they're like, never. I will never put
I
myself through that.
love it. I absolutely love it. I would do them all the time if I could afford it.
Yeah.
If I could afford to do it, I would do one every year. Um, yeah, so I'm just, letting the money trickle in, and once I have a little pool of money to pay the authors, then I'll do another one. But
And you kind of
I
been
loved
doing
every aspect of it. The putting out the call. I loved reading all the stories. I loved organizing them. Every aspect of putting together an anthology was really exciting.
what would you say was like how many stories? Like what was your guess on how many you got?
Oh, it was 200, I think it was 220 something, 250, something like that, about 250, I want to say. 250 stories.
It's a lot of stories.
It's a lot of stories. But I set aside room for reading every single day. And so I was able to get through anywhere from 5 to 10 stories a day,
Man,
depending on length. Yeah.
that is a lot. Like I don't know if I could do it. Like so I admire anyone that's done an anthology. I just feel like I would see 250 stories in my inbox. I'd be like, well, now I have to run away. I have to change my name, disappear.
I tried to keep up with them as they came in. So instead of getting 250 stories and then reading them all, as each story came in every day, I tried to read them. I tried to keep up. Sometimes they would come in batches, so I'd get like a dozen or so, and I couldn't read all of them in that one day, but I'd be able to catch up. And so I was able to read them all within what, a couple months.
I mean, that's amazing. Actually, I was trying to write one for that call, but I didn't get it done in time. Like,
Oh,
uh,
I'm sorry.
I was trying to, but I just it was one of those like I had it and I just could not get the story to work. And then like a year and a half later, I was like, oh wait, I know how to finish that story now.
I
A year and a half later.
know that feeling. Yeah, I know that feeling when it comes to anthologies. I'll see a call and I say, "Oh, I really want to submit to that, but I don't have my idea yet." And then, it's kind of this back burner thing where I'm going to come up with an idea for this story, and then I run out of time, and the end of the call is approaching. It's like about 2 days left, and I'm like, "Wait, I do have an idea." But then by then it's too late. But, I mean, I can write a short story in a couple days, but I usually like to polish it up and make sure
Yeah.
it's good.
I feel like that's a common thing though with a lot of indie authors because the number of times like I've sent a story to like a friend, probably you at some point, where I'm like, hey, could you no hurry, but like in the next 12 hours, could you? And then people send
Yeah.
me is like, say I need like feedback in 4 hours. Like okay, like
Yep. Yeah, I've done that too.
um. And you've also you did the anthology. You've been doing the fly on the wall calls,
Yeah, flash on the fly. Flash on
flash
the
on the fly.
fly.
Sorry, like I
Yep, no, that's fine. It's so that's a fun little flash fiction challenge that I came up with where the I put out a theme, and writers have exactly 48 hours to come up with the story based on that theme and submit a 500 to 1,000 word story within 48 hours. And winner gets, $50 and publication on the website.
that's awesome.
It's a fun challenge.
That's one thing I've started to really appreciate lately. It's just flash fiction, the concept of it, just and seeing what people can do, and like, and sometimes you see like 100 word flash fiction stories, and people can do some impressive shit in 100 words.
They can. Yeah, it's amazing. 100 is really tough. I've written a couple of those, the drabbles, and
Mhm.
they're really tough to pull off. Which is why I've only done one or two.
Yeah, because you have to. I mean, you basically got to have a full story and imply most of it. You can't really come out and say your story
Mhm.
because you have 100 words only. So it's it's really tough.
It is. Fortunately, with Flash on the Fly, you have a little extra room.
Yeah, a little extra room. You got 48 hours, like which I love
I'm a
because
sucker for some Flash.
it feels like a
Really.
a cop show thing. You have 48 hours.
It does to solve the case.
Um, oh, and you all pretty soon. I don't know. It's later this year, I think. Bloodstains by Gaslight. Like your next novel comes out with Bridget Gate.
Yes, that is pushed to probably March 2025.
Okay.
It's gonna be coming out. I needed a little extra time for the revision of that, because it was originally slated to come out in the summer of this year. But I had to have more time for the revisions, and Bridges Gate has been fabulous to work with. They were very kind and very understanding.
Oh, that's awesome.
And they gave me some time to work on the revisions so that I could get it right. Because this is one I really needed to be right.
Yeah. I
Yep.
mean, it's a powerful one because I'm trying to think when I read like a really early version of it,
You
like maybe a
did. Yeah.
year ago, and it was still like I
Oh,
mean it
even
stuck.
longer
It's
ago. Yeah.
oh God, yeah, it probably was like 2 years, but like I mean it has stuck with me. I've not forgotten it. Like it was. I mean, it's an unsettling, scary story. Like, and it has that emotional core that just, yeah.
Yeah, it's so I wrote that in 2021. So I probably sent it to you in 2021
Yeah,
or
that's
early
probably, yeah.
2022. And then I started submitting it in different places and Bridget's Gate picked it up, but I had to wait a couple years because their publication slate was full. So yeah, it's just been sitting with them for a while. And then when I got the edits back, um, they didn't look when I read over the notes from the editor when I got them back, they didn't look too bad. I was like, oh, okay. This shouldn't take too long. But then when I opened it up and I actually read through it again, I don't know if I changed it as a writer over the past couple of years or if I had a little COVID brain fog during the time that I wrote it or what, but it just felt a little disjointed to me and it wasn't working for me now as a writer. So I went through and I did a major revision. I rewrote a good chunk of it. I added another like 15 chapters. It's a little bit longer now. Um but I'm really happy with the way the revision came out. But I did stick with the story, like the overall story and the characters and how they interact with each other and how it ends, that all stayed the same.
I I love the idea of the publisher having just we should have a handful of notes, and then you come back with no, no, no. I have more notes than you have, so
I
I need
know.
I need some more time. I need some time with this.
Well, no, the editor was actually really good, and the editor actually said all the things, but I didn't read it that way when I just read the notes. It wasn't until I got into my story and actually read the book again that I wrote that I was like, oh, this is a bigger change than I suspected it was going to be.
Um, and whenever you sit down to write something, has there ever been like a specific subgenre or anything you've wanted to write in horror you just haven't got to yet, but it's like on your slate, like one day I'm gonna write this kind of story.
I want to try to write splatterpunk.
Okay,
It's
just get
something
real.
really, I want to try something extreme. And I know I've had a couple stories that have some like extreme elements, but like I haven't written anything that's all the way, balls of the wall extreme. I have not done that yet. So I'd like to try that someday. See what
It,
I see what I can come up with.
it does seem like it's kind of like a almost freeing style of writing. It's like no matter how insane or how you can push everything to the limit.
Hmm.
Um, and I don't know, that really
My
seems to
head goes there sometimes, and then I always pull back. So, because sometimes it's a little too far to me. But I mean, what if I just let it go?
I mean, there are people that are into that, like that Books of Horror Facebook group. There'll be these people that's like, I just read this and this is the sickest, most horrible thing I've ever read. What else you got? Like, what can
Yep.
top this?
Yeah.
It becomes like a challenge. Like,
Uh-huh.
like what can I handle? What can you write?
In that group, the Books of Horror Facebook group, a lot of that, I mean, there's a lot of people and they have a variety of, you know, interests and subgenres that they like, but it seems like a lot of the people who are really active in that group are really into the extreme stuff.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And so then like I'll share like my like horror comedy. It's like it's not very extreme. Like,
Yeah.
I hope you like it. Like no one's completely disemboweled in this one. Well, I have done that a few times, but like never like I just like
Oh, I've disemboweled a few people.
that's because yeah, whenever you write like especially if I write anything that's like slasher style, I try to think like what's the most awful thing that you can do to somebody. And it's like, I don't know, cutting them open. That seems pretty like it seems pretty awful.
That's pretty
It's a
bad.
pretty terrible thing to happen to somebody.
Splatterpunk people are like, hold my beer.
Yeah, they're like, this is nothing. This is
I'll
this
put
is
it in a
this is
blender.
weak. Um, well, like, writing in the indie horror world, so like that, you also do like a lot of we all do a lot of reading. Is there anything like a recent like indie horror book or anything that's like stuck with you or that you've just read and you're like, oh, people need to check this out?
I just finished reading it. I really loved Laurel Hightower's Day of the Door. I loved it. I don't know if you've checked that one out yet.
I haven't
Um,
yet, but I'm a
it's
big fan of
like
hers.
a lot of family trauma, a lot of mama drama, mama trauma. And these kids have to get together and kind of unpack the trauma that their mother caused them by visiting her again as adults in the house where their older brother was mysteriously murdered. So it's I really loved every bit of that book. It was really well done.
I need to check that out. I do love like the coming home horror, where it's like, you went through
Mhm.
something in your childhood and now you've come back as an adult and you're realizing the extent. And I feel like we all have stuff that's happened to us that like we get older and it's like, oh, I never really addressed that. I just kind of buried that and moved on.
Hmm. Yep, that's Bloodstains by Gaslight, the novel. That's my childhood trauma.
Yeah, I feel like what's funny is I have like one or two things that like I try to write about. I've just never been able to like, I've done a million variations of it, but I can't like do it. I can't write it in the way it needs to be written or deal with it that way. So it's probably like, I haven't dealt
It
with it enough to be able to write about it. I don't.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough to unpack that because you think you're unpacking it and you think you're writing about it, but like if you have a wall up inside of you emotionally, if you've already scarred over from those wounds from long ago, it's really hard to cut them open again and
Yeah,
just bleed it onto the page. Because once you do, you like you it it can change you again. It can open your it's like therapy. At
yeah.
least for me, it was like therapy to write all that again. It was tough, especially when I had to rewrite it too, because I had to do the revision. So I had to take this whole really difficult scene and write it again in more detail.
And like go back, relive it. Like, oof.
Yeah. So it is tough. But I think it's really rewarding in a sense to do that. And I don't know. I think I've learned to I don't want to say accept, but I've learned to manage some of those old feelings and emotions in a lot more healthy way now.
That's awesome. Like, yeah, it's like I have it. It's something I gotta work on. Like I like you said, I've just like done the burying thing, and it's like so it's like staring at. It's like I guess I gotta dig this up at some point. It's like
Hmm.
it's been 25 years. Gotta
I
dive in, I guess.
recommend if you decide to do it, I recommend being in a healthy mind state, making sure you things are good at home, making sure your everything else in your life is going okay before you start unpacking all that.
Yes, I'll probably just stick with made up monsters for a little. I'll write a Dracula story instead. Like I was like, no, 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 we're write about Dracula. We don't need to delve into all that. Um, what else I was gonna? I forgot. I had a question and then I completely forgot.
Oh, lost
Oh, well, I was gonna ask just about how your art, how you've been illustrating more of your work and things like that. Have you ever thought about doing anything that's almost like graphic novel-esque, where like the art is the main thing, it's not supporting the writing, like it's almost the other way around?
Um, not really. I've considered doing like some coloring books. I thought that would be fun, but
Cool, do that.
but because whenever I'm at cons, especially like the family friendly cons, there's always kids, and there's very rarely things for kids, especially books. I mean, there's some here and there, but people stop by the table and they'll be talking to me, and they have a little kid with them, and I just wish I had something to offer them.
Yeah.
So, and I like drawing, so I thought maybe a coloring book would be a good way to go. But I've never considered doing graphic novels. I've tried reading graphic novels, and I very rarely get hooked on them, which is
Okay.
very strange to me because I'm very visual.
Yeah.
Um, I'm far more visual than I am, words. Words actually come to me secondary when I come up with stories. It's always visual and emotion first. I picture scenes. but I don't so much see the words until later. So I don't know why I'm not more into graphic novels. You'd think I would be.
Yeah, it's you just never know what grabs you, or because there's like yeah different genres and things. Like on paper that should appeal to me, but it doesn't.
Hmm.
I love the coloring book idea, especially like having something for kids at cons. Um, like I think I I'm going to be at the Ghoulish Book Festival. It's my first in March is my first con, and so I have stickers. I've ordered some stickers of
Nice.
the little horned monster thing I draw all the time. So
Hmm.
that'd be something.
Oh,
Something for
good.
kids.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I love having stickers at the table. Maybe I should do that. Maybe I should have some more kid-friendly stuff.
Yeah,
Some
you
kid-friendly stickers.
oh you should do a because like your art has it does so much with like the black and white like the that creepy style. You should do like a scary stories style. Like you have like these little mini stories with these horrifying illustrations that the kids will obsess over.
Yeah, yeah. Like in the coloring book, you mean?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
like the
yeah.
really
That's what
creepy. That's
I know. I keep like it's one of those back burner ideas that's been kind of like punching me in the back of the head like for the past few weeks. So it's probably something I'm gonna start working on soonish within the next couple months, but I need to come up with a plan.
um and with doing like you have stories, illustrations. Do you ever find that like one is like a release for the other? Like if you're tied up on writing, art can kind of free up writer's block or things like that.
I'm sorry. What
Like
was
if oh sorry, like how writing and art, do you ever find that one kind of helps you with the other? Like whenever you get stuck on a story or stuck on a piece of art, you can almost like move to writing or move to art to like unblock that.
um I don't know if it unblock maybe it does unblock. I don't know. I do tend to get I don't want to say bored, but I maybe it's a little ADD. I don't know. But I when I'm working on one thing for too long, I have to switch it up, or I just kind of get I lose interest. I lose passion. I don't want to say I lose
Yeah.
interest, but I lose passion, and it just becomes kind of a slog. And so I'm not necessarily blocked, but I just don't feel like working on it anymore. So sometimes switching over for a day and working on just art is a nice break from all that, but I'm still working. So
Yeah. Yeah, I think the getting
yeah.
bored with the story is because I'll usually, when I start when I usually write the first scene and the last scene because they're like the most
Hmm.
interesting to me. And then it's like I skip around writing my favorite parts. And then like when I'm nearing the end of a first draft, I just have these connective chapters. And it's almost like that's like the slog work. That's like the okay, I gotta stitch
Hmm.
this to this and stitch this to this. And that becomes the part
Yeah.
where I start putting it off.
Yeah, so I don't so much bounce around, but when I'm coming up with the idea for the story and the whole plot line, I tend to work it out in my head most of the time first. And just in these scenes and these random scenes that I know I want in there. And so when I start plotting, I try not to plot too tightly, but when I start plotting, I want to make sure I have like a story and a
Yeah.
little like an arc. Sometimes I get to a point where like I already know the whole story. I've already told the whole story in my head. So now writing it just feels like a chore.
Yeah. And
It's not like so I'll do it, of course, and a lot of it is fun, and I like writing, but every once in a while I just get to this point. I'm just like I need to walk away from this for a couple days, or because my heart's not in it right now.
yeah, no, I absolutely I just finished the first draft of one that like I wrote the first chapter in 2021 and then like I wrote a little bit more over the summer and then like this past month I've just burned through the whole thing, got it done. But it's just like having these long intervals.
Hmm.
But yeah, I finally got it. It's a passable first draft, but it's good to get that point.
Yeah, congratulations. It's a good feeling getting that draft done.
Yeah. And because then the rewriting, like the real work starts then, but it is like a huge hurdle to get over.
Mhm.
Um, well, thank you again for coming on here. This has been awesome. And and yeah, anybody listening or watching, check out basically anything Red has written is amazing. In Excess of Dark is out, Dismal Dreams, Lucid Screams, Impulse of Necrotic Heart. You can get Nightmare Skies. And yeah, sometime March is Bloodstains by Gaslight, which is
Yeah.
brutal, and I highly recommend it.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah,
Yeah, check out my stuff.
exactly.